Hi everyone, thanks for joining us today. I'm joined here by Dr. Nick Wilson for the Bachelor of Linguistics and Language Sciences, and he's going to talk a bit about that degree. So right off the bat, Nick, what is linguistics? And does that mean that you know lots of languages?
That's pretty much what everyone who doesn't know what linguistics asks a linguist. You introduce yourself, you say, I'm a linguist, and say, oh great, how many languages do you speak? That's not really what linguistics is. It's about the study of how languages work, how language works overall, like in the head, in the world, how language evolves, how we've gone from the languages that existed thousands and thousands of years ago through to all the different languages in the world, and how we can actually use all those different languages to reconstruct what went before. It includes how kids get language from being babies, and it includes applications of linguistics and the study of language to do all sorts of exciting things like forensic linguistics, where we're looking at the way people use language in order to solve crimes, or computational linguistics, where we're looking at how we can get artificial intelligences to communicate with us. So there's all sorts of things that linguistics plugs into. But as it happens, I do also speak two other languages.
Oh, fantastic. And what are those languages?
I speak French and German. I think a lot of linguists do speak other languages, and they don't speak those languages because they're linguists, but perhaps they're linguists because they speak the other languages, and they get this idea that, look, these languages have similarities or differences. It doesn't mean you need to be able to speak another language, of course, to do linguistics, but it certainly doesn't hurt to have an interest in learning other languages.
So does it help if the student knows a language before going into linguistics?
Absolutely, and whether that's a heritage language that they've learned in the home or whether they've learned a language through studying it at school, they're really beneficial, but as I say, they're not essential.
So you talked a bit before that it takes in lots of different areas such as history and how to essentially apply linguistics. What kind of units do students who study a linguistics degree, what are they doing?
So we've got a large suite of different units, and as students progress within their degree, they can specialise into different areas. Right? So we start off with quite a general approach, and students will study the nuts and bolts of language, where we're looking at the structure. So we're looking at the sounds that we make, how we make those sounds, how we join those sounds to make meaning, how different languages have different collections of sounds. So as an English speaker, I'll make certain sounds, I'll be able to perceive certain sounds that other people, that speakers of other language might not be able to perceive so well. Indeed, as a speaker of a different variety of English than you, I have sounds in my dialect which you don't have, like the ch sound, right? Because I'm Scottish, and so we have that, right? In a very few words. So we start off with this general approach. It builds up to different bits of grammar and through to different uses of language. So once students have that foundation, they can go on and explore all sorts of different areas. We then move into different introductions to different fields of linguistics. So we have things like psycholinguistics, which is how language works within the brain, how we can, it's like the interface between linguistics and psychology. We have sociolinguistics, which is kind of like the interface between sociology and linguistics. It's how language operates within the world. Why do people have different accents? How come we can understand people with different accents when you try and get a computer to do it, it falls over, right? What is it that's special about humans that allows us to be able to do that? But then also, can we use language in particular ways to achieve certain things? If you think about the way advertising works, that's about the creative use of language and knowing how to push those buttons and manipulate little bits of language to create effects is also one of the things that we can look at within linguistics. There are a range of more specialist units which go on from this. And there are other units of looking at foundational aspects as well. So there's further study on different sounds that we make, and there are units on more complex aspects of grammar as well. Again, building up skills in these kind of things are really essential for some of the later things that people study, especially if they want to look at things like forensic linguistics, which is a unit that we have in our final year of study. We have units on language acquisition, so how children acquire language. And in fact, within this degree, we actually have 3 different specializations So that means that we've identified a bunch of units that all fit together quite well, right? And students can pick one of these specializations and say, yeah, I'm interested in doing study on how children acquire language, so they can do our child language acquisition specialization, and that's supported by one of our world-leading labs in that area. And so there's researchers feeding into that all the time. We've got another one which is on applied linguistics. So if students are more interested in how they can use the study of language in real-life applications, so whether it's as a communications specialist within an organisation, or whether it's within language teaching, we have a pathway for that. And then we have a more general pathway for people who are simply just interested in language and linguistics. A lot of people who study linguistics do so because they're not really sure what they want. And so we do cater for that as well.
So then what type of assessments would students who do this degree be encountering?
So we've got a very wide range of different assessment types, and that's one of the things we really pride ourselves on. We've got your traditional things like essays and like exams. Obviously everybody has them. We have online quizzes and so forth, but we also have more innovative forms of assessment. In one of the units I teach, we have students work together as a group to produce a short video. That video is then put online to the rest of the unit, not online, but within the domain of the unit, and all the other students get to give feedback on that to those students. It's all part of a phase of what we call peer assessment. So it's not just the teacher that's giving feedback, the students are also giving feedback, and then that's all coalesced to hopefully provide a more rich learning experience for the students. It also means that students learn about working as part of a team. They also pick up some soft skills along the way, like how to allocate roles within a group, also a little bit of video editing, and things like scripting and all these kind of things. These are skills that are not particular to linguistics, but it's not a bad thing to acquire these things as you go along. There's another unit which has students create a podcast. There are ones where students create posters and sort of replicate like a conference. And we have other assessments where where students are asked to sort of create a research proposal, which is the sort of thing that they would be asked to do if they go on to do postgraduate studies. So that in our final years, we're asking students to do things a bit more like what they might do if they go on to do further study.
So kind of like practical skills, that kind of notion.
We're very much in favour of students acquiring practical skills that can be used, whether they choose to pursue a research career or whether they are simply completing the degree and then going into the workplace. We want them to pick up some transferable skills. That also includes things you might not normally associate with linguistics. One of the things that we aim to teach our students is a level of academic numeracy and the ability to use statistics and to analyse data. So people think about languages and they think maybe, oh, this is just about looking at language and how it works. Well, one of the ways in which we analyse language is we have to take it to bits and we have to count things and then we have to reassemble them and then we have to do some kind of statistical analysis a lot of the time. So a lot of the same kind of techniques that are used in many other sciences are used in linguistics, and there is a lot of data manipulation and data analysis involved if that's the trajectory that you take within the degree.
And in Macquarie's degree, what makes it special?
There's a number of things that make us special. One of them is that we're the only university in Australia that has a linguistics or linguistic focused degree that is its own degree and doesn't require you to study an additional language alongside it. So other universities will have linguistics and language studies and they'll require a language. So if you don't want to study, that doesn't mean you can't study another language, but if you are just interested in linguistics, you can do that here. Many other universities will have linguistics as a major in their Bachelor of Arts. We are not doing this as part of an arts degree. This is a standalone degree, and that means that students get more linguistics, more bang for their buck, right?
That's good.
And the other thing is we're one of the top universities in Australia for linguistics, so there are world-leading researchers here who are teaching the students and feeding into the general student experience.
So you touched on it a bit before, but what type of career path can students expect after graduating with this degree?
So there are lots and lots of different opportunities available to students. People who have a linguistics degree often go into a range of different non-academic careers. Obviously the option is open to continue with research, as there would be for any degree. But students from a linguistics degree can go into working in things like dialect coaching. That's one option. Often that involves some kind of practice-based experience rather than any further qualifications. One of the tutors that teaches on one of my units is a practicing dialect coach. He's got a degree in linguistics and he's an actor. That's all he needs, right? They can go into doing forensic analysis of linguistics, so that requires simply a degree in linguistics and being able to find the opportunities to work within particular companies that are doing that. Another opportunity is to work within the speech technology and language technology sphere. So here in Sydney there's a company called Appen. They are behind much of the computing power or the algorithms for developing speech recognition for companies like Google and Apple and so forth. We have a relationship with them whereby students are often provided with opportunities to go and work as interns there. If you have a knowledge of linguistics, you can step into that kind of thing. These kind of companies are advertising all the time for graduates who have a bachelor's degree in linguistics to come and do linguistic analysis to help them develop these kind of language technologies, and that's certainly a growth industry for the future. More generally though, because our students are being prepared with these kind of analytic skills and the ability to synthesize large amounts of information and reproduce it in a form that's accessible, then there's all sorts of other careers that they can go into. Any kind of career in which somebody is being asked to deal with a lot of information and then communicate it to somebody else in a more manageable fashion, those sort of things are open. I mentioned marketing before as well. Having a linguistics degree means you understand language, you know how to make it work, and that is a really useful skill if you want to go on into some career where you are doing that kind of language manipulation as well.
Thank you, Dr. Nick Wilson, for talking to us about the Bachelor of Linguistics and Language Sciences. Now we're going to go to your questions for the Q&A component.
Good afternoon everyone, and welcome to our Bachelor of Linguistics and Language Sciences here at the Arts and Social Sciences stage of Macquarie University's Open Day Streamed. My name is Sally and I'm a fourth year student studying a Bachelor of Arts and a Bachelor of Sciences, majoring in Ancient Egypt and Paleobiology. And this afternoon I'm joined by Dr. Nick Wilson, who is a senior lecturer from the Department of Linguistics here at Macquarie University. So welcome.
Hello.
So today we are going to chat all about this degree, and if you guys have any questions you think of throughout, please use the Ask an Expert and live chat function at the bottom corner of your screen, and our academic advisors and student ambassadors will get back to all of those questions. Now, before we get started, and while people are thinking of some questions, do you want to tell us a little bit about your role here at the university?
Okay, yeah, sure. So I'm Director of Undergraduate Studies in Linguistics, so that means I've got kind of oversight of our various degrees. We've got a number of different undergraduate degrees, including the one I'm here to talk about, the Bachelor of Linguistics and Language Sciences. And that means being on top of a lot of different types of subjects within linguistics. But I also teach into the undergraduate program as well, more generally. I teach at first year, second year and third year level.
Yeah, nice. So I made this mistake a little while ago. A lot of people may think that linguistics and language sciences is actually studying a language, but it's a little bit different. So can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, so when you introduce yourself as a linguist, and people say, oh, what do you do? And you say, I'm a linguist. They say, oh, right, so how many languages do you speak? And you say, oh, no. That's not what linguistics is. Linguistics is not about this, learning a language, although we tend to refer to someone who can speak lots of languages as a good linguist. Linguistics is really about the study of how languages are related, how they're not related, how they evolve, how children acquire languages, how the way you use language constructs your identity in society, all sorts of things. But as it happens, I do also speak a number of other languages, but that's not because I'm a linguist. it might be that's why I'm a linguist though.
Yeah, definitely. So if this kind of cleared some things up for you and you did want to know about learning a language, make sure you stay tuned for our next session, because that one is all about the International Studies degree, and that is where you actually do learn a language at Macquarie. But this session is slightly different. So some common questions that we get from students are, what kind of careers would you be able to get with this Bachelor of Linguistics and Language Sciences?
So there's, aside from careers where you would need to go on for some further study, if you were simply graduating through your Bachelor and ending up with a degree in linguistics, there's pretty much any career that involves a kind of close analysis of things, because linguistics really sets you up for that kind of fine-grained analysis of information, of data. It's very much aligned with things that involve, like, code breaking type situations, but also anything where you're required to look at data. We actually, surprisingly enough, linguistics involves some mathematics, right? So we actually do use statistics. We spend a lot of time looking at spreadsheets, a surprisingly large amount of time. And doing things like eye tracking and running experiments. So we train you in experimental method, we train you in statistics, but also we teach you how to sort of map different structures onto other structures, how to follow rules, how to implement rules. So it's a real sort of broad skill set that sets you up for a range of different things. More specifically, you've got learning how to manipulate language, which is what effectively you're doing, sets you up well for something like a career in marketing, where it's all about manipulating language. And it also pairs well with a lot of other subjects. So it pairs well with law or with criminology, because we have a particular area of linguistics called forensic linguistics. But there's lots of other ways in which you can combine linguistics with other areas of study.
Yeah, and you did mention there our forensic linguistics course. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so we've got a subject at third year level called forensic linguistics. It's going to be new for 2021. We're quite excited about it. So forensic linguistics has two main areas, but there's a number of other things associated with it. One is in terms of speaker identification. So that's for instance, in a crime where there is a recording of a particular person, and in a court case or the police investigation need to identify whether that person is actually their suspect, then a forensic linguist would be called in to analyse the speech samples. Similarly, there's text analysis that's involved, so to determine whether someone has actually authored a text or not. So that's been used in cases in the United States to determine whether suicide notes are genuine suicide notes or not, or whether they're being planted by someone who's been a murderer. This is getting a bit dark quite quickly. But on a lighter note, forensic linguistics can also be used to solve things like copyright disputes, and also, interestingly, in university situations, to determine whether someone really wrote the essay that they just submitted.
Could be daunting for new students coming in. So another common question that we get asked is, are there any practical work placements within this degree, and what kind of things would they be?
So at Macquarie, we have, within all undergraduate degrees, we have a particular type of unit within which you get to do a kind of placement, which for linguistics, our one is called Making Communication Accessible, and involves a student going into an organisation and assessing how their sort of communication materials have been designed to be accessible to people with disabilities or to speakers of languages other than English. And so they spend some time doing a placement, but then they have to write a report about that sort of thing.
Yeah, so it sounds like those kind of placements and the research that you get to do in this degree is incredibly relevant and modern. And so I guess for a student looking to do this degree, how is the degree kind of future-proofed? Okay,
so because linguistics is a large area and it has interfaces with lots of other different subjects, we're always looking to explore these sort of interfaces. So things like our new forensic linguistics subject is one way we're doing that. But there's also things like the interface with IT and computer science. So you may not know, but there's a large company that have they're not based here, but they have a company set up in Sydney called Appin, and they work with speech recognition, and they are a real major source for some of our graduates who can go off and work on speech recognition and other ways in which language is used within computers. But then as well, we have another stream of things where people can go off and be communication advisors for companies, so that's very much related to that kind of placement that I mentioned before. And within the modern world, more and more companies are having to communicate much more widely with a far greater range of types of customer or client or whatever, and so having an ability to communicate across all these different types is really important.
Yeah, and I think one of the best things about Macquarie in this regard is that we do have the PACE units, which are the professional community engagement units, which is where you go and do your internships and your practical experience, and the fact that it's built into your degree, you don't have to do it, you know, outside of university, and so when you do graduate, you already have this experience you can draw on for future employers. Yeah. So another question that people are asking is what postgraduate study could this degree lead to?
So there's a variety of different postgraduate options for study within linguistics, and the Department of Linguistics has 4 different postgraduate degrees available. Now, two of those are clinical degrees, and one of our other degrees, our other undergraduate degrees, the Bachelor of Speech and Hearing Sciences, feeds into them. That's speech pathology and clinical audiology. This degree feeds, or doesn't directly feed in, but can lead into the Master of Applied Linguistics, which can be looked at in terms of language teaching, but also in terms of applying linguistics more generally to things like professional communication and being able to advise companies or set up communication strategies for and that sort of thing. We also have a Master of Translation and Interpreting, and that's another area which students doing linguistics could be interested in doing, although I should say that when you're doing translation and interpreting, you do need a language to translate or interpret from. So whether that's been gained through your study at Macquarie or whether you're already bilingual or multilingual, which for the most part our translation students are, then you have to have that additional skill set as well.
Awesome. So many options for the future. Yeah. Now we touched on this before, but a lot of people want to know is this a good degree to pair as a double degree with others, and is there crossover with other departments in the university?
Absolutely. In fact, it's hard to I can think of 1 or 2 where there isn't a crossover, but they're really in the minority, because linguistics, you can see linguistics as kind of being part science, part arts, and there are overlaps with both. So at the science end, you've got people working in lab settings where they're actually sort of sticking ultrasound monitors on people's larynxes to measure the frequency at which their vocal folds are vibrating, right? Much more sciencey. At the arts end, you've got people who are studying the evolution of language, and who would be interested in looking at ancient languages as well. So pairing linguistics with the study of ancient languages, I think, would be an absolute winning combination. Similarly, people work within the area that I particularly specialise in, which is sociolinguistics, and that really overlaps with sociology and with anthropology as well. So there's lots of different areas where you can look for interface with other subjects. Yeah,
definitely. Well, I'm more than impressed. Sounds like a degree I would love to do. That is all of the questions that we did have time for today. If you did have any others, you can use our live chat function and ask an expert. And also check out the on-demand videos and downloadable content on this webpage. Thank you so much for joining us and answering all of these questions which students are wanting to know, and we will see you next time.